been involved in deeply scientific pursuits early in his career. Thanks, friend. Cryogenic.
Dr. Chitresh Nayak, you have muted him. We can't hear him at all.
Long distance, he has completed 100-kilometer walkathon and full marathon. So we heartily welcome you, sir, and we would bless you to actually thank you.
Thank you. I know many of you didn't hear whatever he said, but that does not matter. What is important for today is design thinking, and let me get started. And I'm not somebody who is used to speaking on the internet on day-to-day basis. Let me see how it goes. So welcome you all. Thanks Chitresh and Ruchir for having me here. Let me see. Yeah, 1 second. Entire screen. Are you able to see it? Can you see my screen?
Right now, it is not visible, sir.
I think you may not have given me the permission. Yes, now you have given me.
No, sir. There is in right-hand side present now.
Yeah. I think now you have given me the permission.
No, sir. The permission is not required in this meet.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Excellent. Anyway, welcome again, and during today we will cover what we call broadly. This is what we will cover today. I know you already have been taken through what is design thinking by several speakers already. So while I do not intend to take through the entire process, for the sake of completeness, there is going to be some repetition. Please bear with me. So this is the overview where we will talk about little bit about myself, then what is design thinking, why the world is interested in it. Now, actually today, the design thinking is taught more in management schools than in design schools. Well, let's understand why it is so. Then, some elements of design thinking, which most of it you would have already gone through. Then three things I want to cover today. One is how well our ability to learn from the past is the marker for improvement. So it is in examples. I will take something which I have not done it, but I have only studied as a design thinker. I will take you through that, and finally we'll look at what are the key takeaways? What can you do on a day-to-day basis? Okay. Yeah, this is about me. Like everyone else, I have difficulty in saying who are you. I started my life as a manufacturing technologist, scientist. I was a maintenance engineer. I was a design engineer. Then I was a business leader, innovator, sports enthusiast. I'm also a consultant and advisor. I also spend significant time on social work. So who am I is still a question. And wait, for today, how am I qualified to speak about design engineering is the only thing that is important. In that respect, I was handling the largest product engineering team in the country for when I stopped leading them. And during that process, I have had the opportunity to work on various technologies and the customers across the globe. And also, I have been a consultant to some of these global majors in how to improve their design throughput. So this is my background that makes me, makes me know a little bit on this subject. And at the end, we will have at least I hope to have about 10 minutes of question and answer session. If you have got anything, please note down. We will, have a session on it. Yeah, fundamentally, what is design thinking? Why should we care? Is there a challenge? So there are two words in it. One is design and one is thinking. I will not try to explain that now, but we will revisit a number of times during the presentation. So, this is one of the really intriguing part for me. A wheel which was invented maybe about 10,000 years ago or so. Why did it take so long, thousands of years, to move from a stone, which we have seen, people have been using, to today's tire? Why did it take thousands of years? The rubber tire for the first time was used in 1920s. So this is actually one of the wonders of the design process. When the design is allowed to go through its own course, this is how it moves. A wheel is good enough for people to move from one place to another. It dramatically improved their performance. So this is how you have the stone one. Then somebody thought, oh, I can't carry this wheel wherever I go. So why not I do something with wood? That is how it emerged. Essentially, what you are seeing is need for movement also, brought the next stage of improvement happened because the people found the need for transportability of the wheel itself. Then somebody came up with an idea about how to reduce the weight of the wheel. That's how spoke came in. And somebody found, if I put leather or rubber or any softer material to the wheel, it improves the performance. That is how it actually kept on improving. But the major improvement in tire and wheel technology happened because somebody thought outside of the domain. Yes, rolling is good. It has to be round is good. All of it is right. But, I have seen the wind carrying homes when a large amount of wind comes, which means that the air should be able to support a large amount of load. So the ability of the air as a load-bearing member, that thinking made it possible to have a rubber tire today. And today, look at why it improves so much is today's engineers talk about when it has to be good for rolling. So and for braking it has to have higher friction, and when it is braking, that the friction should be managed. With all that, you will see this, it is not a simple rubber. There are serrations and different types of profiles are made on the tire. So now what you have seen is the number of the design process evolved with the individual need felt or the pain that was felt. Today, with the design thinking, the thought process is ability to imagine all kinds of issues at the very beginning and come with a solution. Okay, and this is something all of us would have seen. People. Okay, are you able to see this? Okay, so essentially, a girl is rolling the lemon to sort out by its size. It looks like a brilliant idea. The thing is, this idea is very difficult to replicate, and it actually does not improve the life so much. But this has become one of the very popular videos on the YouTube. That is because we actually like the action. So this improvement is not any better than having a bangle of different size and trying, whether the line goes through it or not. It's as simple as that. The engineers, even as engineers, we actually like something which attract a lot of attention. Simplicity is not what is the focus. So this jugaad is where most of the designs get stuck. I wanted to bring this particular point to you before we move forward. Okay, now this is a very quickly context of the design in a product development process. See, in a typical product development or business or whatever, it starts with idea, spec development and all that. Then it goes to concept design, moves to product engineering, then manufacturing engineering, and it gets into production, and then it goes to market. Now, when I look at it, how we actually commit. So there is a typically, even before the first line is drawn, we would have committed to cost or technology is committed, which means that even before engineering starts, 60% of the cost is already committed. It is fairly difficult to go back. And the actual spend is actually becomes high only as it starts getting to production. Okay. Then the knowledge of what I am doing lacks even the actual spend, which means that we actually commit a lot of money even before we know anything about the product, and we know a lot about the product when we have already spent all the money. This is one of the challenges of engineering. This is called knowledge gap. What do I know versus what am I committing is called the knowledge gap. The whole purpose of design thinking is to reduce this knowledge gap, and that is done. That is because your influence on cost keeps on going down as you go, move through the process. When the product idea itself is not there, you have the highest leverage on cost. As it goes to market, my ability to control cost becomes lower and lower. So in order to control this, we have what is called a method is called plan, do, check, act, which means that the design itself should keep on evolving very quickly so that I'm not surprised when it gets to the market and the cost is under control. This is the overall context of the design process. This particular thought process of designers is what attracted management thinkers. Why we are not able to do what these designers do on a routine basis, and can we implement it, something like this to my business? Will it help? That is what has made design thinking as popular as it is today, and it is primarily studied in management schools than in design schools, because in engineering we tend to think that we already know it, so we actually do not spend as much time on it. So essentially, one example is, see, dimensions are the last decisions are made. Okay, when the product knowledge is very high, but even then, 13% of the issues that are tracked, in a product, will actually track back to faulty dimensions or tolerances. So we make as much mistakes when we know a lot about the product. Then imagine how many issues that we will be creating at the beginning when we know nothing about the product. So this is the context I want each of you to remember. And if you just remember this one thing, you know everything about design thinking. It is the rest of the talk is what you call information sharing. This is the overall concept. So essentially, why this such gap exists? Say, I will talk only from engineering perspective, simply because you're all from engineering background. So engineering has got, say, three main streams. One is product engineering, where you actually design the product, detail it, analyze it, then whatever change that comes, you handle it. Okay. Then is the manufacturing engineering, which is where basically they work on process designs, tools and equipment needed for it, what kind of methods are needed, what workstations are needed, and many things like that. Finally, when it gets into production, how do I optimize the process? How do I do industrial engineering, ergonomics, material flow, supply chain engineering? All of it comes in. But why it is so difficult to work with each other in most of the places is there is a body of knowledge which requires knowledge of one or more streams of engineering. Example is manufacturing engineering and the product engineering guys. Both of them should know a lot about design for manufacturing process simulation, dimension management, and things like that. And similarly, both production engineering guys and manufacturing engineering guys should know enough about the material handling systems, plant layouts, all such things. Okay. Similarly, between product engineering and industrial and production engineering guys, there has to be a shared understanding of design for process capability and design for material utilization. Okay. So now, how much I should know and how much I should manage is one of the areas of challenge that comes in, and prototypes are the way to overcome these limitations. The purpose of a prototype is primarily to get feedback from various stakeholders. It could be customer, it could be marketing, it could be production, or it could be maintenance, all this. So the purpose of prototype is only to get the early feedback from the other knowledge sources which need to contribute into our design process. Okay. So I think this is one area which all of you must have gone through enough number of times already, and I have used the same terminology just for the sake of continuity. Otherwise, I also use different terminologies. One is, the first thing is empathy. How well do I understand what the customer wants? What is the ecosystem in which my customer lives, and what are his the emotions? Who does he work with? What are his needs, and all that? So in order to, once I have that, once, the customer is not somebody who can tell you what exactly has to be done. If he knew what exactly has to be done, he would have done it already. That is the purpose of the design thinker, is to appreciate what customer is going through and come out with a solution separately. So the next phase is definition. What is the customer need? And if I do something, can he get benefit out of it? And what kind of specification it has to be there, and things like that have to be done. The third is, finally, now I know what is the need. What are the ideas? What kind of concepts are needed? What each concept will handle better than other concepts? Can I have a combination of concepts? Now, you know that none of the concepts will be able to address the need completely. This is when a hybrid design comes in, and that hybrid design, you want to be sure that it actually satisfies most of the requirements as well as you want it to be. That is the purpose for which we do the prototyping. So in order to do a prototyping, there is a beautiful subject called design of experiments. So in order to understand the known and the unknown even better, you actually have to define what are the things I understand fully, what are the things we don't understand fully. And that design of experiment as a subject, if you have not studied it, I encourage you to study the design of experiment as a subject separately. Prototyping, how to design a prototype, is dependent on design of experiment. Then finally, testing. Okay. This testing can happen at various stages, but when it happens on the end product, it is called validation. Otherwise, it is called, all other tests are called verification. The testing that happens on the end product is called the product validation. I just want to stop for half a minute here. Is there any questions for anybody before we move forward? Okay, if there are no questions, let me take you through one example of from ancient India. And the key thing to understand here is, do not get focused on what it is in terms of whether it is belongs to temple or mosque or whatever. What can we learn from here as modern designers is what we should get focused on. I could have taken any example. It is just that this example is something which is more familiar to me. There may be many examples. I want you to take a look at the other examples in your own spaces and understand it better. Are you able to see is it visible to you, Chitresh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, there is a temple, is what you are able to see. Okay. Now I will give you background. About 1,000 years ago, a queen had a dream. She called a lot of people to give a brief. What is that? This queen was an outstanding dancer, and she is a visionary person. She wanted to create a place which involves a lot of people, and it actually celebrates, that represents our heritage. It celebrates our heritage, and it actually gives expression to the culture and scriptures of the nation. Then she also said, apart from that, it should be a place where it brings various types of people together. It should be a place of celebration, and it should be self-contained. Then, can we also, this place, can it also become a place of education? A temple should not end up being just a place of worship. What can we do about it? Can it give expression to our arts and culture? Can it represent engineering? Can it actually give its, our philosophy, design philosophy, or the ancient philosophies? Any of it? How do we make this a place of education? Then finally, do whatever. It has to be have a finish beyond compare, and this particular temple should be something people will see with awe after many years was the thing, and the way we do it should be that it should be continually able to improve. So this is a kind of a brief. Now, if you can, for a designer, it is not giving any information, right? It only is talking about the emotions of what is that we want to, what is culture, what is scripture, how do we place, all these things are still a question. Now from this, so many ideas this queen is giving, how do we bring it together is the challenge that the team has, and they actually go about fairly quickly. It should become operational quickly, but should keep evolving. Does it not sound odd? I have to be able to use the temple so that people start liking it, but it should keep on evolving. Both of the, and it should be of top quality. All of them appear to be conflicting, but this is a requirement that is captured. The finish should be of exquisite quality, which means that if I have to produce top-notch quality, it should be easy to work on. What is easy to work on is generally not long-lasting. How do I bring this together? Becomes the next question. Then, if you make any place too big, people actually lose connection with the place. So it should not be too big, but it still has to accommodate hundreds of requirements the queen has given. It should be innovative and should also comply with tradition. This is one of the challenges. But the thing is, even today's designer also realize a car has to appear like a car. Even if it works better, if it does not appear like a car, nobody will buy it. Essentially, innovative, and yet it has to comply with all traditions is one of the requirements. Then the last one, it has to be open and grand, but shouldn't be obscene. Here, in this temple, why I'm talking about open is there is, along with all the scriptures, there is Vatsyayana's Kama Sutra also has to be depicted in the temple. But temple has got it, is pristine in nature, and depicting something like that should not end up becoming obscene. It should be open, grand, and also not obscene. This is a fairly difficult requirement to manage. And in my design career experience, there is nothing which is more difficult than having something grand and yet elegant. So this is also good. It should accommodate everyone and still should appear exclusive. Look at the number of requirements that are captured. Essentially, from this, a concept emerged. This concept is about having how about having multi-cornered star shape? So the beauty here is star shape can give highest amount of space for exploration for a given circumference or the given volume that it occupies. It appears like a brilliant idea, but such temples have not been constructed before. This is where a need for a prototype, comes in. And the question that came up is, how do we sure that it won't look awkward when it is finished? Whenever we do something different from what has been done before, people may say, think creatively. But if that creativity does not appeal to people, everyone will blame the designer for being brainless. Okay, this is actually one of the difficult things. Then somebody, an architect, said, you know what? The cost and effort to build a finished product is about 1,000 times the dirty prototype. Brilliant insight. Even today, most of the time we actually do not understand. This is the difference between the project you do in college versus what goes to the market. The college project can be done at a 1,000 or millionth of a cost compared to a finished product that goes to the market because of the perfection that is expected in the finished product. But this is a brilliant insight 1,000 years ago, and this is what they did. They actually came out with a dirty prototype so that a lot of people can participate in the design process. Obviously, this would not have looked like this, the prototype when they started, but essentially it is conceptualized by experts, improved by artisans, and royalty participates. You would see even today, if you have a top management, they would be able to appreciate only when you show the physical thing in front of them with as much details as possible. Then commoners contributed, artists came and performed to see how good it is, or all that. And once this is tried, the magnum opus was created. So this is, if you have seen, there are different names are called for a dirty prototype. It is also called low fidelity prototype, which means that it does not perform exactly the same way as the end product, but it gives a reasonable understanding. Okay, so this is the concept of prototyping. Prototype costs 1,000th or millionth of the end product, and that cost is better taken at the beginning of the process. And for this particular temple, I don't know why other temples later did not follow this. Even today, this stands, a prototype temple, and each time they want to improve the original temple, they try it on this before they transfer it onto that. Okay, so look at this is how it looks. Now it has taken care of large open spaces where people will be able to contribute, and it has become a template for Vastu Shastra. A lot of us are interested in Vastu. We don't know where what should come. If you enter the temple, actually it is there. There is an eastern entry. Then you have the main water source on the northeastern side. Then a specific water source on the opposite side, so that the normal people, normally all the people who are using it would not end up, playing with the temple water, whatever, they will have something. So essentially, look at that, the overall schema that is created, which actually satisfies significant amount of needs already. And one of the important parts is, you have whenever there is a participation, if it rains and all that, there are certain number of people who can get into the brain structures and the prototype structure, but also there is enough space for people to get in, all around the temple. So an example of this, see, look at that. It's much smaller prototype, much less detailed, and it has the platform for education and the performance. For if people want to read, so they have a platform to study, and there is a dance performances also happen here because of the star structure. A number of performances can happen independently. So about 6 or 7 performances can happen at the same time. So this was designed about 1,000 years ago. For the size of population that was there, it could handle the entire population of the town. Today it may not be possible. And we will see, look at this structure. What is special about this is 42 feet tall and is standing without any attachments. There is people actually try to put their kerchiefs or towels or whatever on all the 4 sides, things come out. This is such a beautiful demonstration of engineering, and many of you would have studied this, how to use the self weight of a structure for its own stability. It just has touch points, or 4 touch points, and rest of the places you can actually take the paper through. So why people tend to do that is, when a lot of people come to that place, it helps that curiosity. People will trying to pass the paper, and out of hundreds of people who do that, there will be a limited number of people who always ask the question, how is it possible? What have they done? And the first question always starts with, they must have attached with something. But later, the asking question, people will start figuring out the physics behind it. This is how the ancients have evolved a way of creating curiosity and thereby learning in public places. Okay, so this is an example of there is. Obviously, when you want to teach in a place for education, symbologies are extremely important. So, Hoysala, this is from a kingdom called Hoysala. Here, what the picture is showing one of the early kings slaying a lion, and that has become their symbology. And it has got multiple symbologies, but that is not the purpose of this presentation. But what you will end up wondering, we will also see further, is how did they create this kind of pillars where it has to be turned? So it's such massive pillars. How is it turned? How did they do such intricate structures, without damaging anything? So this is where a material property becomes so important. This was done with a stone, which is reasonably soft while doing it. Later, with the treatment, it becomes hard so that it handles the fury of nature. So, the beauty of how to do it, and also the material science also brought in here. Okay, so some more details about the level of details that have been shown. Again, the thought here is, why do we need any of this? For a kingdom of those times, my kingdom has the most intricate type of sculpture is a thing of pride. So in order to develop pride within their citizenry, this was one of the requirements of royalty of those days. And in order to break the same thing, later this temple also has come under attacks, and certain other things have come in those places. Okay. Now, today's government talks about speed, skill, and scale. The Hoysalas had their symbology. So that symbology comes from elephants for strength. Then there is a special animal which is derived from a lion, elephant, peacock, and crocodile. All of them together, they called it Sharaba. So that is the versatility, is what it represents, suppleness. This row is about the horses, that is about speed. But in governance, it is not enough to have strength, suppleness, speed. It is also important that we actually respond to the people. That softness, empathy is represented by flower, which is on the 4th level. So essentially, if you look at just one place, they have tried to bring in so many things. And also for people who are interested, they can always have a question: how did they create similar kind of elephants repeating again and again? What did they use? Did they do everything by hand, or did they use some other methods and things like this? Obviously, I have not found answers to all of them, but I have answers to some of them. This kind of a wonder of education that they have tried to create. Okay, so this is the space for the deity, and for inner sanctorum also there is a dance seva space they have created. And how this and look at that, how did they do this is an issue. How did they turn such accurate structure without a proper turning machine? These are the kind of questions it evokes. But essentially, this is not about the temple, it is about the design. How did they go about creating something which is contradictory itself into the form of design? So then various types of visual expressions, fashion statements, there are scriptures on stone, and how to take care of the stone for times to come. All of it is kind of documented. Yeah, but real issue that a designer has to deal with is why I took this example is it took 103 years to complete, to bring to its present form. So typically we have a difficulty in the projects actually will get distorted if it goes beyond 6 years or 7 years, because people change and things like that. Obviously, if it is 103 years, about 4 sets of people would have changed completely. Still, how did it maintain its character is a wonder. This is what is about the design thinking. How do we create long-lasting designs without changing the primary design completely? Okay. Essentially, how did they maintain continuity and how did they maintain quality? So with this, we'll go back to design thinking, empathy. So they got everyone to participate. When there are large number of participants, it creates a culture, and it created it captured emotions. and everyone's ambition was captured, which we have seen. Then we looked at the define. It defined what all should be included. Then what are the constraints within which we have to work, space and things like that. Then I identified the, how long it's going to go and how to start and all that. Then with a lot of idea generations, one of the concepts which accepted was creation of a star-shaped concept. And Vastu compliant, so that people can copy if they want to. So stones being used as an education medium is one of the real brilliant ideas that came through this. Then the prototype is that a smaller sized proto-temple we saw. Then we have also seen, all the new ideas actually are tried on the smaller one before trying it on the permanent, on the final structure. So this became a permanent prototype for prototype platform, you can say, for everybody to try and try their idea. Then implement verified ideas on the main structure. So finally, the testing is about it actually demonstrates the evaluation and improvement ideas as ongoing. So any when a structure is treated as a living being and thought of it, give space for it to evolve, it evolves for a long period of time and in the way it was initially envisaged. So this is one of the thought process I want to take with you. And with this, you can study any of the older structures that are close to your home to understand what kind of thinking that would have gone behind in order to make it happen. So a lot of now this form. One thing that we have to remember is design thinking is not new, but the framework in which we are studying today is new. So it was not in the same form or same language was not used before. I did work a little bit with Stanford University, who coined this term design thinking in their early workshops on innovation. Okay, so with this, we will get back to the main topic. Okay, so going back to now, I'll take you through something which is very close to my heart, which I was involved in. This is reasonably recent. Okay, see, this was the year 2000, which is about 20 years back. So a US company was looking at, I was part of this journey. There are a lot of hobby farmers in America, and they have more hobby farmers than most countries. But they end up, they were using whatever implements regular farmer was using. The curious question was, do they have a new, do they have requirements which is different from a regular farmer? In order to know that, we went to their farm and looked at them. Now, see, a hobby farmer is generally into a lot of different things, whereas a professional farmer is generally focused on what he wants to do. So whichever has got the highest leverage. So one of the things is, wouldn't it be nice to have a suitable vehicle? A horse carriage is, we all go together, that's fine. But is there a vehicle that we can use during all seasons? Then it also does the work. When I'm using tractor for all different purposes. Tractor is primarily needed for only at the early stage of my farming. And how do I carry? Can I also carry the produce in the same vehicle? Is the question. Because now for carrying produce, we use a different vehicle. And can I have the comfort of a car? So with the proper cabin and all that, that can also work with the livestock. And we will have, the minute corners, small corners when I get in, how do I get back? Can I have a vehicle which does all this work? Is the kind of aspiration. And by then, this farmers thought that such vehicles anyway are not possible. I need to have multiple vehicles to do the same thing. Is something which they have resigned themselves to. This is the thing, empathy part, immersion with the customer location gave us all these ideas. The question is it possible to have a machine that does work of multiple ones and also operate under severe weather? The place where this was done, it can go up to minus 40 degrees centigrade in winter and plus 50 degrees centigrade in summer. So for a vehicle to operate, for a farmer to operate throughout, it should have heating, ventilation, air conditioning, all of it. Yeah, so from that we created, we heard the voice of the customer. From that comes a need. So need to idea. Now there are one of the needs identified are like, we should have a air conditioned 2-person cabin. So if it will be going around in all hot places, if something falls on it, it should not fall on the person. So it should not have, it should have a falling object. And any of these also work in ugly places, which means that there is a possibility of rolling over. Can we have rollover protective structure? I should be able to work at night, and there should be an articulated arm to lift. And to do different types of work, we need different types of attachments. It should work in narrow corners, and which means that I should have a low turning radius. It should work in sticky areas, which means that probably we need a 4-wheel drive. Then it should have a cargo box, so which goes up and down, loading, unloading, and liner, so to ensure different types of material. So we captured the need, something like this. From this need, you have to create the idea, and idea to concept. So this is the idea became the concept. So this is how, if it looks like this, probably people will also like it. It has got an air conditioned cabin. See, look at, it has actually covered all the need. This is how we move from voice of customer, empathy stage to definition stage to idea stage. Okay, concept becomes specification. Now we actually took out, air conditioned cabin means what it should have. It should have a dashboard like an automobile. I should get a good feel. I should have an adjustable steering wheel. Then I should have a multiple torque speed lever, things like this. Okay, so from this emerged, it should be a hydraulic drive is going to be there. It should be some 54 HP diesel engine. It will have all the steer, all the wheels will steer, so that it will have a low envelope area and all that. Okay, this is how some level of specifications emerge. From this, designers will work in detail to create design specification, which will again reflect back on product specification. Okay. I wish I was able to see you all, but anyway, some other time. So without feedback, speaking is reasonably challenging, but anyway. So the work machine that the work of multiple machines is how we actually arrived at. So from this, we'll have to create multiple prototypes. One prototype will not be enough. One is feasibility. We have come up with the idea whether it is feasible to manufacture within what we have, or how much of new capability we have to bring in. Is it possible to design like this? Is top management going to like it? What do marketing guys think? Whether customers are going to like it? This is where a semi-functional prototype, which looks like the end machine, is created, and that is taken for people's feedback. Second is a functional prototype. So this is where you actually take, in this case, this is new to the world machine, so we did not have anything similar to this to try, but we still used existing engines and some of the cylinders and all that, which does not do the work of the final machine, but it actually shows it is possible for me to make the performance possible within the space available. So we actually functional prototype to verify performance possibilities, manufacturing challenges, and IP possibilities. IP is, what kind of intellectual property that I'll be able to create from this, or am I violating anybody's IP? That is a very important part of this prototype. Then the third most important thing is assembly prototype. We'll have to be very clear that when I produce it, it actually does not, there are going to be no surprises, and all manufacturing verifications, assembly testing, all these kinds of things could be verified. This is where the highest level of engineering verifications happen. And finally, the production prototype. This is near market ready. It has all the near production methods are used, and first market prototypes are done and sent to the market for testing in its live condition to give feedback just before production, so that only the perfect product gets to the market. Yeah, essentially, in a new product development work of, this is called a work utility machine, there are several things that happen. We will touch upon a few here. See, when you are doing a subsystem, there are a lot of questions we actually end up answering. Which are the important points, where it can fail, have I considered all the abuse, because finally I may give the product, I may give whatever kind of specification to user specification, user training and all that, but there is a possibility of a user abusing any design that is given to him. So have I taken care of that? All these kind of issues will be handled at the subsystem design level, and including manufacturing. Look at the number of details we'll have to worry about. Should it be, where should the pivot be, so that when I lift a lot, it should not, the weight I'm lifting should not end up toppling the vehicle itself. So such performance and safety, all such studies will have to be done. So this is what as part of engineering, many of you would have figured out. And when we are looking at a chassis, is it taking care of all loads? What kind of issues that happen? Do I have enough space for routing all of it in case of a failure? Will somebody be able to access it? Many of such studies will have to be done. So then, you got, component design. This is a real detailed part of work. Even something as simple as this, air distribution, does it distribute uniformly? Is it easy to handle and assemble? Because, some awkward looking shapes when we create, it should be easy to handle. Then, is it strong enough to take impact if somebody handles it wrongly and all that? Have we considered all modes of failure? Does it require special testing? And is this designed for a specific manufacturing method? See, the thing is, in this alone, for plastics, virtually we have used 4 different types of manufacturing methods. Injection molding, if for those of you who are from mechanical engineering. Injection molding, blow molding, roto molding, and various reaction molding, all reaction injection molding and all these. When we do that, does it make me go to several different places? Will it create supply chain issues? A lot of different things. Now, without getting into too many more details, I just want you to appreciate the design thinking. If I do a lot of good work at the beginning stages, the work that is done at these stages will not become waste. So you are seeing the amount of work I'm putting in detail stage is multiple times the effort I put at the initial stages. So it is very important for us to get the initial stages right. That is all I wanted to say here. Okay. Then there is the overall view of the work ahead is what is important in design validation. So how much more time? 15-20 minutes more. Okay. So for design validation, you have got various CAE tools. You can do digital validation. Finally, it has to be tested in physical mode so that it could be used. So the design engineer, actually, as a design engineer, I was able to visualize certain issues that are going to come during the manufacturing stages and work very closely with the manufacturing designers in order to get it right. Yeah. So and with all this, sometimes we also underestimate. This is one of the places there is something called wheel well. It's a very fairly complex shaped product. The cost of a the tool, making a tool for prototyping itself was coming to $200,000, which is too expensive for a prototype stage. This is when we ended up doing it ourselves. This is one part of it. Obviously, as a dirty prototype, the way we came out with that is, use a large number of plates, bolt them together, weld it, and to the nearest shape, then machine it. So today, I think yesterday you must have gone through the rapid prototyping techniques, with which all I have to pay is for rapid prototyping, and from that I can create a casting, and from that I can create a machined tool and things like that. A lot of possibilities have emerged during this year. Rapid prototyping has become such a wonderful tool for product development today. Yeah, finally, result is something like this. Now I just want you to see whatever they have put. Yeah, so those of you, obviously I took this shortest video that was available, but if you are interested, you can actually go through. But what you may want to appreciate here is, see, design thinking, what kind of a difference it made. Okay, this is new to the world product, which is produced got to the market in record time, 22 months. From new to the world product, it takes longer to the market because it has to establish its own uh, protocols in terms of testing, validation, and all that. And even today in those company, one of the things our head of the vice president of engineering those days used to say, in this company, even a variant takes 40 months to get to the market. You guys have shown to the world that what is possible with innovative thinking and teamwork is what the CEO of the company and vice president of engineering had to say. So essentially, I just wanted to bring it to your thing about the power of design thinking. So recap: there is a voice of customer, which in the modern design thinking terminology is called empathy, and you immerse in a user environment, record customer behavior, how he is how he is living day to day, and finally get to this level where you are able to articulate the need. So you look, please notice the overlaps. It is not only overlap, there is also repetition. It's iterative also. There is articulated and unarticulated needs have to be captured. These are all part of the define stage. But in order to understand the needs, we should also be thinking of ideas at that stage, concepts and how it should be specified and all that. So that is called the define stage. But as we said before, the defining is never complete if I do not ideate during that period. The level of ideation is different during define phase, but I will have to do some level of ideation at those stages. Then at every stage, we are going to prototype to verify not the things we are not so sure about. And we are also going to test every single thing which we are not sure about or mandated by regulations. So this is largely what I wanted to say on this particular thing. So essentially, there is a POC. POC is proof of concept, prototype, equipment, limited release product are all different. So unfortunately, a lot of times we use it differently. POC is not the same as prototype. Prototype is not the same as equipment. Equipment is not the same as limited release product, and the product is not the same as limited release product. So just the difference is each will require different levels of definition and higher testing level. The testing level that is required on a product is thousands of times greater than what is needed on a POC. So essentially, if you remember, design is a non-linear repetitive process, but for ease of understanding, we depict it as a linear process. So this is what I wanted to say. Okay, so then there is two more things I thought if time permits, I thought I would be able to go through. Now looking at the time, we have just 15 more minutes. We will wrap up so that if there are any questions, I will be able to take it. Okay. So again, one more summary. I think design thinking is not, summary is design thinking is not a new idea. but it's a new framework. Learn from the past, imagine the future. So one of the things we have to remember is what has sustained for long will continue longer unless a disruption comes in the way, similar to Newton's law of motion. And it is a method and a mindset to design thinking is a method and a mindset to define, frame, and solve problems. So it is not a solution itself. It is just a method, mindset to define and frame, solve problems. And the very important part is we have, we tend to get confused between being optimistic, pessimistic, and all that. Design is not being optimistic or pessimistic. It's an iterative process. If I am not optimistic, I will not even think of ideas. If the ideas are coming to me to solve a problem, means that I am hopeful of the future. If I'm talking about the problem, means that I know what are the challenges ahead of me. So it is very important that we have a comprehensive definition of the problem, and we also note conflicts in requirements. We optimize and then optimize for most favorable outcomes. What that means is maximize what's needed, minimize what's not. So no matter what we do, along with what is needed, what is not needed comes in a way. The designer's ability to balance these is is a requirement that is important. The design thinking process helps one identify these challenges early in the development process. Look for alternatives even before very first prototype. So in the work machine example I showed, I think we have used the number of alternatives we have created are so humongous. When it failed, because of the details we had worked in at the conceptual stage, we could be able to recover without any effect on the end date. So a very important step is look for alternative even before the first prototype. And the prototypes is done to get a feedback from other stakeholders, especially the ones who are not as closely associated with design as we are. So manufacturing guys find it a lot easier to give feedback when it is when there is a prototype in front of them. So are the customers and top management. And there can be multiple prototypes for to ensure better understanding. This is something we covered. It need not be just one prototype. And prototypes are very important to verify if the first step is understood correctly. Empathy, whether customer is going to like what I have done, it's extremely important. So prototypes may be of high fidelity or low fidelity, depending on the requirement. Low fidelity, as we saw in the temple example, it's a low fidelity, is where it started, which was promoted to high fidelity over a period of time, which means that, but whenever it comes to market testing, the prototype has to resemble the end product as closely as possible. So when it is high fidelity, all I need to remember is high fidelity resembles the end product very closely. And remember, they need to remember certain principles. Jugaad is not design and idea is not concept. So if we do not, if we start considering Jugaads as design, the product is not going to be successful. Jugaad is very important as a dirty prototype, but that is not the design of a product. And any product development will have multiple recreations, recreate multiple times. Best design happens when three things come together: skill, knowledge, and mindset. And it also takes care of the ecosystem. So it's good for everybody. Is what is the purpose of design thinking? With this, thanks for listening. We still have 10 more minutes for question and answer session. And if you have, with this, I will give it back to Chitresh Nayak. Any questions? I will take it.
Participants, if you have any questions, please go on.
Attendance link.
Actually, sir, pardon me. When I was introducing, it was a mute. Mic was mute, so I couldn't introduce you properly. I would just like, please give me a few minutes to introduce. To speak some few words for sir. Sir is an innovation leader with nearly 3 decades of multidisciplinary background. He's at equal ease between deeply scientific work, creative engineering work, and product development, strategic management, or program management. After being involved in deeply scientific pursuits early in his career that spanned cryogenics, scientific instruments, and specialized technologies, sir has moved on to help organizations on new initiatives in organization building, strategy development, and execution. He headed country's largest product engineering team at the time, where he was instrumental in the company being recognized as a global leader in engineering services. He has worked on academic alliances with leading universities in the country and the globe. He was among the first to define and consult leading companies on global engineering. He has previously worked with CMTI, TCS, Geometric, and VIA Group. He set up and run a successful company before he chose to pursue his interest outside of the corporate. Sir helps companies with strategy building, organizational processes, and top management. He plays a key role in developing competency offerings and technologies. He's trained as a graduate in mechanical engineering with fellowship in manufacturing, advanced skills, and in innovation, value engineering, among others. He invests and guides startups, has expertise in corporate finance, and is now dabbling in personal finance. Philosophy and sports are his favorite pastimes, but takes up challenges in unknown field. And in his brief stint with long distance, he has completed 100-kilometer walkathon and full marathons. So thank you, sir, for such a lovely, informative session we had. Participants, if you have any queries or questions regarding this session, please go on.
Okay. I think there is, I just noticed one question from Karan Sharma. That's a brilliant question. Out of how to select best ideas. See, there are, we talked about need a lot, okay? See, one of the important parts here is, I may have multiple needs, but there is something which is very important to me, okay? Important need to me, maybe no need or unknown need. That is the other part. Whichever need has the, whichever idea serves my most important needs effectively is the best idea. Okay, that is at the idea level. Now, that best idea also has to be looked at from feasibility perspective from multiple dimensions. First and the foremost is cost. Yeah, if the idea is brilliant in work, it works beautifully, but it is simply out of league of my customer, that idea is not useful. So in order to do that, there is a lot of work to do in terms of how much is my customer ready to pay for a product like this. So from that, idea evaluation starts happening. Okay, one, how much is my customer ready to pay? Then how much can I produce it for? So that difference gives me the margin or whatever that you call that, the top management will have a very strong saying there. Yeah. So then the number once the Karan Sharma, if you can switch on your mic so that you can respond to me whenever I am done.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So is that clear so far?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. So now from the number of ideas, you also have a ranking system, which is and you can weight it. So one is the usefulness idea to the customer will always have the highest weight, and usefulness to the company, which means that how much money it is going to make, and do I have to change my systems in order to accommodate the idea. The moment I have to make a lot of changes to my system to create the product, that idea will get lower ranking, right? So things like that, yeah, you will have weighted parameters based on which one has to evaluate the idea. Okay. Now there are, this you have not asked, but let me tell you, sometimes many ideas look very close. So your ranking methods may all become very difficult to do ranking also. Those are the times what is called a forced decision technique is used. So for more details, you can study any of the value engineering books. It is called forced decision techniques. So many such techniques are used in order to zero in on one particular idea. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other question?
Any more questions?
Okay. If there are no questions, maybe I could have used that time to show one more thing. But anyway, it is not easy to concentrate on on internet for so long. So I think this should be good. If you have got any questions, in future, you can write to the organizers, and I will, answer to you. Wonderful speaking with all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.